The alpha brain mouth is just going.
Just going. Oh, God, that sounds terrible. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, for part 2, Salt of the Streets podcast. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Donovan.
I'm Colin.
We are
Sorry, I was distracted by the chat.
You're good. We're happy to have you. We're very, very happy to have everyone here. Thank you all for joining us, especially those who are here from IRL.
Whoop.
Thank you again. I want to thank you all for like a 5th time for joining us and tell you again you are at youtube.com/saltofthestreets. I want to make sure that I ask you to like, subscribe, and of course share with your friends if you're here and you like what you're hearing today. It's going to be a great conversation coming up. We also have our Instagram, our Facebook, the Patreon, at Salt of the Streets. We also have saltofthestreets.com where you can find all this information, including our own private or personal social media. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram, and Colin is at Big Philadelphia on both of those things. Go to the Patreon as well. Sign up there so you can get some of our writing. The newsletters come out at the last day of the month. $5 will get you the newsletter and every one that we have written before this.
I like the newsletter, bro. The newsletter's fire.
The newsletter is fire. We're going to talk about that a little bit in the next segment because I wrote mine about Uvalde shooting and the 2A rights and stuff like that.
We do a lot of writing about guns
Yes,
on the show
yeah,
here.
a lot of writing and
and
talking about
the
guns.
rights there, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Put that way.
Again, Swell Blended haircut. I got my haircut yesterday by Swell Blended, so if you like this haircut, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. If you're in the local area, go to Swell Blended. Get your haircut, swellblended.com. We also have Location Skate Shop downtown Bremerton for skateboards, obviously. Lexi Kayo on Twitch, Colin's wife if you want to watch some video games, and Leggings and Aprons on Instagram for cakes.
Yee. I think you should tell the people what you plan on doing for your hairstyle in the future.
So, I don't think that I've talked about it on the show. So the plan is I told my barber.
This is the first time I've heard of it today. So
which
I was like,
can't believe because I can't believe I had not told you. Yeah,
we just started working together again. So
yeah,
it's to be expected.
I told my barber, Paul Swell Blended, that I want a modernized revolutionary haircut. I was watching a lot of revolutionary era TV shows and stuff like that. So it's going to be, I'm not going to have curls on the sides, right? Nothing like that. Yeah, that's a good example, though, I think, of just long and it's going to be pulled back. Yes, that's a great example.
So
pulled
like
back,
that?
yeah, into a nice low pony like that. And when I get classy, maybe tied up in just, like I said, maybe 2 or 3 ribbons or 2 or 3 little braids, and then like one braid, 2 or 3 twists is what I mean.
And when you feel fancy, you'll do a nice pullback
yep,
like
and then
that.
a little ribbon at the bottom. A little ribbon at the bottom when it gets
Love
real
it.
fucking classy. I think in that the one next to that picture, he might have a ribbon in his hair. No, it's just a ponytail. But so I'm saying, nice low pony, little braid in there.
With America?
Yeah, I'm fucking here for it.
I love it. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
Huge fan.
It's going to get hot. It's going to get real hot.
Yeah, it is.
It's going to be a hot boy summer, but I think it'll be worth it at the end, and it'll be probably about wintertime by the time I'm there.
Yeah,
And
you
it
can do
grows
the low
pretty-
chop too, like the mid chop.
Yeah, we'll see what's up. I like to have a little bit of sideburn, you know. We were watching Supermarket Sweep. You never seen that show before. Chad, Supermarket Sweep, you know what I'm talking about? The fuck is wrong with you guys?
We don't watch
Supermarket
garbage
Sweep.
TV.
Oh, fuck you. Oh, fuck you. Supermarket Sweep, at least one person in this chat is going to know what I'm talking about, is a 90s
right.
television show that is based around a supermarket.
Yeah.
And so they ask you a bunch of random questions that are obviously all grocery themed and stuff, you know, little puzzles and things. And then you have to like run through the grocery store and find certain items. And there's a sweep portion where it's 3 teams of 2. And one person from each team has to run through the store and fill up their cart and try and rack up the highest bill possible in the store. And then whichever team wins that sweep portion.
It sounds so familiar. Like I feel like I've seen this before.
You have seen it before. You have to have seen it. It's such an iconic 90s show. You have to have seen it. And yeah, they're in the sweaters, the neon sweaters. It's absolutely fantastic.
Okay, no, I have not seen this.
Yeah, that guy hosted Let's Make a Deal. Yes, so that's the sweet portion, right? They're filling up their carts with as much stuff as they can to try and rack up the highest bill, and then whatever team gets the highest bill. Oh, so they brought it back at some point.
Oh,
that's what's her face.
Supermarket Sweep cruises back to ABC for season 2.
That doesn't matter. That's the woman that Milo Yiannopoulos made fun of.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it.
I can't remember her name. It doesn't matter.
I remember what he called her.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
Nope.
We're doing good. We're not going to get canceled today, Colin. We're doing good. No.
Hey, if Milo's interning for MTG, bro, anything can happen.
That's right. That's crazy.
It's
that.
a fucking gimmicky
Publicity
thing. Yeah,
It absolutely is. But
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I think it's hilarious.
right.
So,
But anyways, you were watching Supermarket Sweep. What?
I don't remember why we were talking about this.
And we were just going on. Let's drink some beers.
So let's do it. So yeah, I already opened it because I'm an asshole. This is the we call it the Ash Cloud Amber. You picked up a bunch of random beers from Total Wine.
It's a good time.
So let's see. We'll get myself
Yeah, a little higher. A little higher. You got to awkwardly get high.
Right here.
Yeah, there. Yeah, that's a good pour. Look at that. That's healthy.
Speed up a little bit.
Way better than my pours on the show.
There we go.
Hot dog. And that's just a luxurious little foam head right there.
That's good.
Look at the fucking perfect pour on the
Show
podcast.
off the nice.
That's a nice color too.
Little salt of the streets.
Yeah,
right
laser
there, too.
edged.
There you go. That's nice.
That's right. Smell good?
Yeah, nice. It's pretty mild, you know.
Ooh, that was loud.
Little dip on the
That
nose.
was a lot louder than I thought. Yeah,
A little schnoz dip.
yeah, it's a problem. And then I got this cool red cap Irish red ale, which will be Irish style. I don't know what an Irish style red ale is, but we're going to attempt to do this. Conveniently, I'm always over the keyboard.
That's good though.
Yeah.
That was solid. Way faster than mine too. Ooh, that's dark.
That is dark, man. That is a dark red.
Yeah.
It's much more kind of a brownish
Yeah,
red than
look
a
at-
reddish brown.
Oh,
Here, let's
there you go.
boop, boop. Yeah, dude, that's like
yours is way darker.
crazy. And yes, Will Wallace, I'm getting those light up coasters because that'll be legit. You'll be able
That's
to get a
right.
nice color here.
Well, cheers.
Cheers, bud.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to
Okay.
part 2 of 4, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, why in the fuck are you talking about supermarket sweep?
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows, man?
Oh, well.
It's probably we just want some light, witty banter before we get into the soul crushing morosity of the state of the world.
Oh, God, yeah. Okay, so part 2, right? Part 2, we are going to be discussing the
Ooh, that's good.
leaked draft opinion
Yes.
from the Supreme Court, right? So, man, we're not lawyers, so we're not going to dig too deep into the weeds on Roe v. Wade because all we can really do is say whether or not we thought that it was decided correctly.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll talk about it a little bit and talk about how it was decided because there's a lot of confusion on that, as there always is. People don't actually know what they're talking about a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
clear up
I thought it just means that like all abortions are good.
immediately.
Yeah,
It means
I
that
thought
they're
that means you could do
immediately
that.
banned as soon as it's done. Actually,
Yeah.
now that even just the draft opinion happened,
It's
it's all illegal right now. So no, they're not at all.
geez.
So on the 2nd of May, late in the evening, I believe it was Politico that originally reported that a draft opinion from the Supreme Court from Justice Samuel Alito had been leaked in regards to Roe v. Wade. This draft opinion was legitimized the following day, was confirmed to be real the following day, and it seems to indicate, if you believe this to be the draft of the final opinion, it would indicate that the Supreme Court intends to overturn Roe v. Wade. That would also overturn Planned Parenthood versus Casey and kind of reset the precedent for abortion in America.
Yep.
That assumes a lot of things, right? So we
Yeah.
can take the first kind of break right here and go over that. This is a draft opinion.
Yeah,
So,
and I just showed it, and at the very
Yes.
top of the header, it says first draft.
right.
Now, sometimes first draft can essentially be the end result. I mean, they might
Could
end
be
up with
first
that.
draft of the final.
Exactly.
Or
We don't know.
it could mean, as is very common, this could be Samuel Alito's first draft opinion that he was circulating around to convince the other justices of what his opinion was so that they understood his argument to try and get him on his team. It could also be anywhere throughout that process. It could be his first one, the first draft of the final. It could be any of those things. We don't have any way to know at all.
Nope.
Right? So,
Which is why they're not leaked.
right. And we'll
Sorry.
definitely, no. We'll definitely get into that. Yeah, so it is a draft, and like I said, it could be any number of drafts along the way. So that also means, because the draft also, again, it means that it's not the final decision. It's not
Yeah.
the final opinion. So nothing is decided within this. This is just a piece of paper. It's almost just a note that's being passed from justice to justice, from clerk to clerk, so people can understand what they're thinking, all right?
Yep.
Excuse me, especially at this point without any more information. That's really all that you can assume that it is. It's just a note being passed around so that people can have a better understanding of Justice Samuel Alito's mindset going into this case, right?
Yep.
So, let's see, it was the next day that they confirmed that it was real. Sorry, I'm going to turn my...
Yeah, because what do you call the Justice Roberts?
John Roberts.
Yeah, the John Roberts. What's his title?
Chief Justice.
Chief Justice. Yeah, he did confirm that following
the
day.
following
that it was
day, he
authentic.
also initiated an investigation into the leaking of the document itself, right? When this was leaked was the 2nd of May, so at that time we still had some time that we were waiting for the decisions. Now that it's June, we are going to start seeing the decisions for this term of the court begin to be released. So we will obviously soon find out whether or not this is the first draft of the final opinion, or whether or not it's just one that was being circulated. We will be able to see who wrote the final opinion, how much of this language was translated into that opinion, and everything of that nature. So no one knows exactly when they get released. It's just throughout the month of June. It's just kind of when it ends, they release them as the decisions are finalized and everyone signs them, and it's not usually all at one time. It's kind of over a little bit of time, over a few weeks or so.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're prime time at this point. I mean, it could be any day now. It could possibly, with all the issues that have propped up around this. I mean, it could be maybe even earlier into July, just depending on how things go. We never really know, but we're prime time anytime.
And the last big thing, I think, basic thing to clear up is that even if this was the final decision, the first draft of the final decision, and it were to be handed down this way, abortion would not immediately become illegal across the United States. That's not how this would happen. It would be turned over to other outside of the states that have trigger laws on the books, because there are laws that are states that have laws on the books that if Roe is overturned, then abortion becomes illegal in their state.
Yeah.
That is something that exists. But outside of those states with those laws, abortion would not become, and even then, it wouldn't become illegal across the United States, just in those states with those laws.
Yeah.
It would then be left up to the states to decide within their own jurisdictions how they were going to handle things, which is already, to a certain extent, how it is now.
Yeah.
And we can start to get into kind of some of that other stuff. So, let's talk about the leak itself, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's the best place to start.
Let's start here, because there was a lot of language, especially right after this happened, that, well, the leak doesn't even matter. And to discuss the leak is just a distraction from the real discussion of Roe v. Wade. And really, the main point is abortion rights. Abortion. The leak doesn't matter. So let's stop there.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court in itself, there is a tradition, to say the least, of secrecy within the body itself, and that it's designed that way and done that way for so long to bolster the autonomy that it has from the other two branches, to keep it completely separate, right? Yeah. We've discussed many times before, they don't have an enforcement branch. There is no police force for the Supreme Court. There is no anything. The only thing that gives the Supreme Court its legitimacy is all of us believing and choosing to do what they say.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that keeps it there. So they have to, for their own best interest, and if you, as an individual, want the country to stay as a whole, for your best interest as well, they have to keep themselves separate. They have to stay autonomous from everybody else, to appear to be completely separate, to appear to be uninfluenced, to be unchanged, unwavered at all by outside opinion, governmental opinion, by anybody's opinion other than their own. Even their own personal opinions, they need to be unswayed by. Yep. That is why this tradition exists.
Yes.
So
it's, and the way, I don't want to use that word secretive. I don't necessarily know if I would classify it as secretive.
Okay.
I would call it more of an opaque process, because it's all open within the court itself.
And I definitely didn't mean anything inherently negative by it. I appreciate that, because secret, especially speaking in a governmental context,
it's got a weird context.
It has an undertone of negativity.
I don't think anybody misunderstood, but
it's no, and that's, I appreciate it. It's just to keep it transparent and objective, that there isn't any negative intention in that opaqueness, in that secrecy. It is, again, to keep them sovereign, to keep them autonomous from the other two branches.
Yeah, the separation of powers is not just fancy words on a paper. The sanctity of the court needs to be completely separate from the rest of the two branches, especially now that the other two branches have essentially merged into one.
Right.
For the most part.
Right.
The sanctity of the court was damn near the only thing the Republic had left. And with you said it before, there was a lot of people that are saying, the leak, that's not the story. The leak doesn't really matter. What matters is what's coming out of there and blah, blah, blah. And you had elected representatives getting on national television and saying that the leak is just a distraction.
Yes.
When the conversation about the leak and the import of it is just a distraction on the substance of whatever is in this draft opinion. If there is a way to go back and hit a button and erase the memory of everybody that saw that opinion, that would be the best situation here, because now public interest, it's like guns, right? Or ghost guns, we've talked about it a lot in the last episode. You can't uninvent something. You can't, once the draft opinion went out, you can't take it back. People know now, society knows, and obviously we'll talk more about it, but all the justices are very aware that the public knows. And so there is sway now over their final decision.
Right.
You can't get around that. You can't put that back into the box at this point. And it's a very, very dangerous precedent now that it's been pushed by our elected representatives that it's okay for this to happen, because the Supreme Court needs to know what the public's opinion on it is, so that they can be swayed to make the right decision, if you will. And all that does is pull every last bit of legitimacy from the court away.
Right.
And it has become just another political apparatus at this point. I mean, we've argued that beforehand when you talk about liberal and conservative judges. It's just another political thing. But now, 100%. Yeah, it's 100%.
And it says something about their long-term intentions, because, like I said, if your goal as an individual or even as a party is, if your long-term goal is the maintenance of our nation, the maintenance of the republic, for us to continue on, then this is a bad thing. If that's what your goal is for us to all stay cohesive, then this is a bad thing. And if you're not against it, then that says something about what your intentions are, what your goals are. That you don't care about this. Well, I don't care. I don't care whether they have legitimacy, because in the end of the day, we that turned into arguments of expanding the court, overdoing the filibuster, all these things, and saying that, claiming that the court is legislating via opinion. Right? That these other, it's something that they've been trying to do for a very long time, is essentially legislate through the court anyways, because the Congress can't get past certain roadblocks or whatever. So they put so many extra things on the court's table so that they can essentially walk away. And if they don't get the result they want, they can be angry at it. And there's no real legislative way around that, unless they actually change the law or amended the Constitution so that the decision can be overturned, because now it is constitutional because you amended it. Or there's things you could do to get there, but you don't, because you really, as a political party, as a party holding power in some court of some form, you want there to be a bad guy that you can point to that essentially you can't do anything about. And because it's great for re-elections, it's good to get the base riled up, to get voters out, to do all this stuff, and it's a good way to get out there and proselytize the messages that you want to proselytize. And there's no consequences because it's up to the courts, man. The courts let us down. All the Trump justices, blah blah blah. And we've heard, I should have come up with a list to have, but we've seen that in the last few years from Democratic legislators, and I'm sure conservatives as well, talking about how Supreme Court decisions haven't gone as far as they think they could have. Well, they didn't decide as far as they could have. They didn't go as far as they could have, or turning down certain decisions that they should have taken up and saying, well, this doesn't need our eyes. It should be handled in the lower court. There's been a lot of language of that. Well, why aren't they handling this? Why aren't they handling this? Because they're telling you as legislators that it is not, it's your job. It is incumbent upon you to solve this issue and not them. And they don't, as you said, the legislators don't then take them back upon themselves. They just complain about the Supreme Court that they aren't doing their job.
Political liability.
Yes.
That's the term I was looking for. That's they get rid of their political liability at 100%. That point.
And it's just a football. It's a political football, just to be passed back and forth, and they don't care because you said it's out of their hands. No one's name is on it at that point. It's just an argument of whose fault do you think it is? Do you think this is a legislative issue, or do you think it's really a judicial issue? Is this a civil rights issue, or is this something as simple that legislators can handle? So, and I think this is increasingly concerning because in that time where the legislators are scrutinizing the court, we've seen that translate through the last confirmation hearings that I've seen in the rhetoric, right, where you're talking about whether or not a justice is conservative or liberal. It isn't even possible to assume at this point that they might be objective. It's just now, are we putting up someone conservative or liberal? And we've talked about that when we went over those last confirmation hearings, that when you approach it with that view, it removes the objectivity that is supposed to be inherent in a Supreme Court a prospective Supreme Court justice, right? And it increases that scrutiny and the questioning, suspicion, perceived illegitimacy of the court by the citizenry when your elected officials are saying that to you.
Yeah.
You know, this person, they're conservative. You can't even, straight off the bat, they're conservative.
Yeah.
We saw
It's a 5-6 balance on the
Yes.
conservative side.
And we saw that reappear in these discussions when, and I don't have a particular lawmaker, but I'm sure that we could find it, when they're saying that we need to stop doing the confirmation hearings because it's obvious that the justices are being deceptive. It's obvious that they're lying, right? When, again, we've gone over every time in the confirmation hearings, if you ask someone in a confirmation hearing how they're going to rule on a case, they cannot tell you that. And if they do tell you that, they shouldn't be a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
And now we're turning that as legislators and twisting it and twisting it and twisting it to, because they wouldn't tell us, and then they ruled in a way that we said that they would, they're lying.
Yep.
They're lying because they're ruling how we said they would and they said that they wouldn't. Now they're liars. So we can't even trust they're being honest in the confirmation process. It doesn't work. We need to expand the court. We need to do away with the filibuster, and we need to move on. I'm serious.
Yep.
Like that's how quickly it turned within days.
So
to
quick.
Expand the court, remove the filibuster. We need to vote on Roe immediately. All of this. We need to completely change the process of confirmations because it's not working. Oversight is not working at all. That's insanity. They are contriving this scenario through their rhetoric to which the public at large cannot trust the Supreme Court. They have no reason to at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, when they've become so delegitimized, and it's not even necessarily through their own doings. It's through the legislature has made them an illegitimate body by convincing the public that they are, bye baby, have a great time at the gym. Like you just said, like you're influencing the court at that point. You're making it a political mechanism. And once you convince the public that all these judges lie and they're not telling us how they're going to vote and do all this stuff, then people get upset about that because they don't understand how the system's supposed to work. Then boom, in the eyes of the public, they're totally delegitimized. They're just another political apparatus, and the sanctity of the court, it just doesn't exist anymore. Which, I say it all the time, but my favorite saying of the republic is dead. If there was one thing that really put the final nail in the coffin, this was it.
Yeah.
The minute that the leak draft opinion came out, and there wasn't immediate and complete outrage to the fact it was leaked. Doesn't matter what it was on. It could have been on some arbitrary tort law bullshit. Doesn't matter. Then at that point, the third branch government has now officially merged, essentially, with the omnibus piece of democratic, governance that we have now. I mean, this is democracy. This is democracy. That's what the fuck democracy is.
Yeah.
There's no separation of powers anymore. You have the executive branch that just makes things happen. You have the legislative branch that works lockstep with the executive branch to make things happen. And now you have influence over the court. And not to mention, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little later on, but like pushing the idea that you should be protesting outside of a Supreme Court justice's house.
Right. So we'll pause here before we get there, right? Because you were talking about influence in the court. And I think that's really important because now we should talk about what the arguments we've heard for why this was leaked, right?
Yeah.
We still don't know. The investigation is still being done. The fingers are being pointed immediately as to, and the fingers are being pointed to lay out the different intentions, right? We've both heard that it was clerks from any number of different justices, right? And
left and right.
Right. And at first, and again, that feeds into the different arguments of, you say it was a clerk for Justice Sotomayor who leaked it so that the conservative justices would have to try and change their opinion because they would see the backlash.
Yeah.
And then if you've heard that it was from a conservative justice, they were doing it to try and force the conservatives to not change their mind, to double down on their opinion, to make sure that they still stuck with this.
Yep.
No one knows, right? Absolutely no one knows.
To this day.
Who leaked it? Yeah, like I said, until the investigation is done. But there's assumptions either way, Yeah, so there's assumptions that are, again, postulations that it was to bolster the opinion in either direction. There are federal laws against them protesting outside our federal justice's home.
Yes, there are.
Right? So let's talk about this now, because again, as soon as that, and it will kind of lead us into some of the topics a little bit later. We'll talk into the Kavanaugh, attempted Kavanaugh shooter in part 4. That's kind of a grab bag topic. Because there have, and we have seen actual real life consequences at this point for this type of rhetoric, because not only, we'll just start here. We started to see protests outside of the home of Supreme Court justices, of any number of Supreme Court justices, particularly conservative justices. How could you do this? People out there with coat hangers and all kinds of crazy shit, signs, and you're a piece of shit, you're a liar, you're a fucking whatever. All kinds of things outside of their homes. And when the White House and the press secretary are asked about it, they're like, hey, obviously we don't think that that's right, but people protesting peacefully is fine, and we support the right to protest peacefully.
Yeah, it was one of the last things Jen Psaki did was get there and legitimately say that peacefully protesting outside of the Supreme Court Justice's house is the way it's supposed to be done.
That's how you
as long as it's peaceful. Don't worry the fact that you're going to terrify the family of the justice. You're definitely influencing their decision at this point
100%.
because you've just they're under threat at that point. I don't know the proper terminology for that, but you're coercing them, or I don't know. They're under threat.
You're intimidating them for sure.
Yeah, 100%. How do you not think that a decision is going to be swayed one way or another if all of a sudden you got protesters outside your house?
Yeah.
It's 100%, and the White House is backing it up.
The White House is backing it up, and we saw even more intense rhetoric from, you have a Chuck Schumer video there, Lori Lightfoot, who had a legitimate call to arms, said, This is a call to arms, my brethren. They are coming for us. Telling the LGBTQAI plus whatever community, they're coming for us.
Yep.
They're starting with abortion, and they're coming for us. This is a call to arms. Actually saying that. She really actually said that's not me.
You're not paraphrasing.
No, I'm not paraphrasing. I'm not exaggerating her statements. That is actually what she said. And then we have Chuck Schumer here. Let's play this little video.
This was actually context. This was 2 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
That he did this. So I got to unmute the site. Boom, boom, boom. And I got the audio set up, bro. This should work.
There it is.
Switch it up and.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Magic buttons make it jump too.
And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
What the actual fuck?
You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
And we've only seen the country at large get crazier and crazier in the last 2 years.
Yep. That's terrifying, man. I mean, and that's 2 years ago, man. Like you said, things have only gotten more powder keggy, if you will, over the last 2 years. And videos like that resurfacing where you can tell why the temperature in the country is so much higher now. It's because that rhetoric has been going on since, it's been more than 2 years now. This is all the way through the Trump administration. The rhetoric really heated up. You could argue that during Obama's, especially the last term, things really started to kind of kick up and, get pretty nasty, but they were nowhere near. These are exponentially lower problems, I guess. I don't know how I'd want to phrase, but yeah, it was an exponentially lower temperature then than it got to during the Trump administration, and then even more so today. It's terrifying, man. This is, I used powder keg earlier. This is a powder keg just waiting to go pop. And I don't want to give Tim Cass too much love necessarily because we talk about him a lot here. But, he said, over a year ago that if there's going to be something that kicks off the boog, the great luau, it would be something like abortion and Roe v. Wade getting struck down. And when you look at the rhetoric being put out there now and the groundwork being laid, you can easily see it happening. Once the final decision comes out for that, and if they're overruling Roe, things could get pretty crazy for a while. It might be another, especially because it's the summertime now. It's not going to be wet and cold and nasty, which always kind of subdues a lot of protests. But early summertime, late spring, this is prime time protest time, and there's going to be another summer of love.
Yeah.
with lots of fiery but peaceful protests. I can foresee it now. And I do not know how you turn the temperature down anymore. I don't. Especially when you're talking about the sanctity of the court. The one last branch of government that's supposed to be independent. I don't know how you do that. Another summer of love. That's right. So yeah, it's not good. I'm gonna see if I could find. I thought I had Lori Lightfoot's little convo the other day. Hey, look, there's Benjamin Boyce.
There he is.
Oh, this video was great. Somebody put this up. It also has to do with the kind of the Kavanaugh hearings and stuff like this. Somebody was talking about the footage from January 6th. It's just harrowing. It's people slamming on the doors of that Congress trying to get in. And then he goes, oh, actually, wait, that was during Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing. Whoops.
That's funny.
She's
trying to peel the doors open.
Yeah. I saw that video come up, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not Jan 6 people. Those
funny.
people they got way too much soy in their system to be Jan 6ers.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not good.
No.
So we could talk a little bit more some of the effects. The law itself. Again, part of the reason we tried to have two guests on today was we were going to have two women on. I'm not going to name them or anything because I don't want to call them out or embarrass them. It's not whatever. That will make more sense when I talk about it a little bit later. I have some more stronger words for things like that.
Wait.
But, tried to have them on to have just a deeper discussion about abortion, right? We've talked about abortion a bunch of times in the show.
Yeah.
And it is generally an exploratory conversation.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking about it earlier this week, actually, when I was thinking about my family, and maybe think about the way that, like, abortion is kind of presented and stuff like that. The first time that I remember bringing up abortion, I don't remember how old I was, maybe in like the 4th grade or something like that. And
damn, hitting it early.
Here, there had to be something in the news that was popular that I had brought up, and I had said something to my mom, asked about abortion, and she was like, well, what do you think about that? And I said, I think that I'm pro-life. And she said, you think that if a woman is raped and she gets pregnant, she should have to keep it? And
it's not a fair statement.
And that's the first thing that she said to me was
Yeah.
that. And I then, as 10 years old, was like, oh, well, fuck shit, I guess I'm pro-choice, you know? So that is often how it is presented, which I think is not, it's not a helpful way for the entire argument to be presented, right? So we've talked about this a lot of times. And we continue, I don't want to speak for you, right? I continue to find myself in a difficult position of believing very, very deeply in individual autonomy and bodily autonomy and people's choices to do whatever they want, because I think that that's incumbent upon you, and wondering at what point we as a society decide that the life growing inside of you is a baby and now has that exact same right to bodily autonomy and deserves to have the right to live, to try and do whatever it's going to do with its life. I don't know, you know, and the real struggle that I come into is because the only logically consistent point that I feel like I can come to is like at the point of conception. And that's not based on religion or any of that type of shit. It's really like a scientific thing of when we're talking. Crowder and all those people have the alien argument didn't necessarily convince me of like, oh, well, if we found a single-celled organism on another planet, you know, then we would call it life. And I've certainly, but that didn't necessarily convince me. But you know, at the point of conception is when an individual set and code of DNA is created, and genetics for an individual human being exist at that point, even if you don't have a baby, you know, quote unquote, at that point. But that's when there's individual DNA, individual genetics at that point. So logically, that feels like the only consistent point for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Like there's a chemical change of event that begins to occur where if left in the optimal situation, because obviously there's complications all to hell, but if it's left in the most optimal situation, it will grow and continue to form into a human.
And I don't, because it's not from a religious standpoint, I don't have anything inherently against like Plan B and stuff like that you take the next day that just stops this potential life from implanting within your uterine wall and growing into a full fetus, right?
Yeah.
I don't have an inherent issue with that because I don't have like that base. Anything is a life, and any, you know, I just don't like, it's not a religious thing for me, so I don't have that. So I don't know, that's why I wanted to have more people, more women here in particular, to try and expand this discussion, because I don't know. And I don't like the idea of government involvement really at any level in people's decision to do what they want with their body.
You feel like it should probably be down on the smallest level possible, the smallest threshold. You should handle it at the lowest level possible. That should be in, and we'll just say this, like every time we talk about abortion, it's always nice to have the female perspective, because it is going to be a completely different perspective than ours, because we only have a certain angle to that involvement. We're not the one carrying things to term, and it's not inside of our body and all this stuff, but it does take two to tango, generally speaking. And so when people make the argument that, like, unless you're a woman, you don't have an opinion on abortion, I would say, well, kind of fuck you, because what if I'm the father of the child? And I do have fucking say, somewhat. I don't know, it's not overbearing, obviously, but I have some input that I have earned that
certainly
input.
Should,
you know what I mean? But I too am I don't like the idea of any authority telling women what they need to do with it, or a couple what they need to do with it, or what they can and can't do when it comes to an abortion. I'm very much against it myself, just on a personal level. I'm not, if I was in that situation, I would not advocate for that within my own relationships. But again, every circumstance is different, and I don't think this is a problem you can legislate away. There's no right answer that's going to fit everybody's situation. So it shouldn't be everybody's problem to solve.
Right.
It's only 1 to 2 people's problem to solve. And I think if you were to fall back on that thinking, I don't see how you lose in that situation, because you're giving it's not the individual, but it is 2 individuals. It's the smallest level you can do it. And yes,
if they're both involved.
If they're both involved, yes. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, right? And I don't necessarily, it's a conversational question, necessarily expect you to answer it, right? Because we've also talked so many times, and we're going to talk more later, about you can't legislate morality, right? And a lot of this, especially, even if you are religious, a lot of it is a moral argument that to have an abortion is immoral, because you're killing a life. You're taking a life, you're killing a baby. It's immoral. It's not right. So you can't legislate morality. We've discussed that dozens of times. So, using that as the base, right, that you cannot legislate morality, murder is illegal, people still murder people. There's nothing you can do about it, right? Is the answer then to make no limitation and hope and expect that societal pressure will curb? Because we've seen there are states now, and I have a little diagram here that we can go over. There are states now that don't have any limitations at all on abortion. That I talked to Jake about this 3 days before Reason was born. She was born 3 weeks early, so Jordan was 37 weeks. And I was out shooting with Jake, and I was talking to him, and he did not know this at the time. And I said to him, do you know that Jordan could go to Oregon right now and have an abortion? This was the day after the baby shower. Oof. So she's that pregnant. I said, do you know that Jordan could go to Oregon right now and have an abortion and no one would stop her? And he said, what? I said, and that's not the only state in this country in which you can do that. I said, and I'm not, that is fucked up. I said, that's a baby. There's no doubt. So when you put your hand on Jordan's stomach and you feel Reason kick before she was born, there's no doubt that that's a baby. I said, and we're going to act like that's okay, that's not morally questionable, regardless of whether you're religious or not. We're not going to act like that's morally questionable for them to kill a baby that could be born 3 days after that and be perfectly healthy now, because she's over a month old now. So,
and she's so adorable.
So see, Deborah said, no, you can't legislate morality, but it's a God issue. Do you believe in God is who he says he is? And if you do, how can you destroy the life that he has ordained? Certainly. And we've talked a lot of times on this show about making sure that the quote unquote pro-life argument is not boiled down to, oh, you're just a religious zealot, you just want to control people's bodies, right? Because I understand, even if it isn't my mindset and my opinion, I understand that especially if you are religious, that if that's where you're coming from, that's your take, is that this is a life. From beginning to end, this is a life that God has created, and you are destroying that life. And that is a 1,000% valid opinion and 1,000% valid argument that is delegitimized to no end by the left, by the pro-choice crowd. For you, like I said, you just want to control people's bodies. You just don't want women to have choice. This is a woman now, Deborah Mueller, who's telling us this is a God issue. This is not a moral issue. This is a God issue, right? So this is obviously a very valid opinion.
100%.
And I don't know, you know.
It's one of those things where it's so morally reprehensible, and constitutionally reprehensible, in my personal opinion, because the minute that there's a possible life, it's an American life who has rights, and there's some weird gray area there where, you know, people argue one way or the other about when does that thing get personhood. Because
once sold, right? That's when they were on Timcast. That's
sold.
what they're talking about. I don't remember who it was. It was one of the Daily Wire guys. They had Jeremy Boring and somebody else on there, and they were talking about the question is not scientifically. It's not even a question of when is it a life at this point, because we've settled at conception. That's a life. You know, like I said, the DNA is there. That's a life by pretty much all means. Standard. That's a life, right? Yeah. The question now is, when does that life have a soul? When is it ensouled? And if you listen to someone like Libby Emmons, right? Last night she was just talking to many people who are on the left and growing up with people who are on the left, and them not having a concept really of what a soul was, that it was just a life, you know, that they didn't have a concept of there being two different beings of your body and your soul. It was just that you're a person. If you don't even conceptualize those are two different things, then it's not even about that. It's just about a life, and it's so much easier. And it's not, I don't think it's correct, but I can understand now how you get to the point of, well, until it's born, it's not a life. If you don't even conceptualize a soul as different than the life flowing through you, if you don't conceptualize those as two different things, then you aren't a person until you're born. But that's a distorted perception, I think, of what a person is, even from a non-religious standpoint. You definitely have a soul. There's definitely something in you outside of just the electricity in your brain, you know, in your body, that's making your body operate. There's definitely something more than that. And I don't know, I can't turn that into a definitive thing, but there's, in my opinion, there's definitely something there. There's definitely a soul there.
So I don't know if I can't necessarily go that far, because I can't conceptualize what that is. I guess I can conceptualize it. I can't rationalize it. It's a weird deal for me to try to figure out what a soul is and whether it's a tangible thing. But let me ask you this. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. You ever seen anybody die?
I have never seen anyone die. No. Okay.
Because I could tell you right now that I've seen it multiple times, like at the point where it's over. And there is
I've seen animals
something,
die, but never a person.
There's something that, and it's different when it's animals, because I've seen the same thing, right? But there is something different before and after.
Certainly.
You know, whether they're in a coma and they're just, you know, they're essentially a vegetable or something like that. The minute they die, you see something different. You can, and I don't know if I can't contextualize that and call it a soul myself, but there is something else going on.
Right.
That body is no longer, now it's just a thing. It's no longer a person anymore. Something is gone. And it's weird that when you see that, you notice it. It's very, very noticeable. And I don't know if that's an instinctual biological deal, if it's maybe it's a religious thing. I wish I was a religious man, but I'm not. And it's hard for me to call it a soul, but I will say that there's something that happens when a body dies. You can see it, and it's not disturbing, but it shakes you at your core when you see it, no matter how many times you see it.
And I think that's how I would describe it as well, even not having seen that, right? If you even just I watched my younger brother die. Yeah, so
there's something.
Even if you didn't watch it, right? If you know someone intimately and then you see them like at their funeral at an open casket, there's something. That's not the same thing. Outside of that, that's just a body. It's a completely separate thing. You know, there is not, something has gone there. And even though the same deal, I can't describe that into a tangible asset, but But that's how I would describe it. That's
You could
even
tell.
not from a religious. I would still describe it that way. That just happened. That person's soul is no longer in their body. Even I don't have a religious point for that. I wouldn't say anything other than that's your soul, man. And I don't know if it's your galactic energy or your whatever. You know,
your Thetans, bro.
Everyone has a different thing. You know, even like Jordan's not religious, but she believes that everyone is energy, and so when you die into plants and all that, I don't know. You know, and so I would never. Because I also couldn't tell anybody that they're right or wrong. I would never tell Deborah that she's right or wrong or Jordan that she's right or wrong because no one actually knows. And that's why I would never try and put it into anything more than that. Because to me, it doesn't matter. You know, you can call it whatever you want. We're all, me, you, Deborah, and Jordan are all agreeing that something is happening there and calling it something different.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what we call it, man. We all are acknowledging that something is there. And if you... not you, but you as a person, as a leftist, as an example, can't conceptualize that difference, even to the base that you and I are of something is different.
Yeah.
If you can't conceptualize that, then it's just a clump of cells. It's just a thing that you're just getting rid of. It's a parasite. You know, that like I've heard that.
God,
I've even heard that before.
That's so disgusting.
All I've ever known is women should have a choice whether or not they bring a child to term. But it is also possible at the same time we are telling women there are no consequences for their decisions. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's when you're seeing...
It's your decision, but there are consequences.
When you're seeing 800,000 abortions being done every year, right?
It's a lot, man.
What do we hear?
I should have pulled it up. I've always heard that there was a year in New York City where there was more abortions done in New York City than babies were born that year.
2017, the Guttmacher Institute reported 862,320 abortions, an abortion rate of 13.5 abortions per 1,000 women aged 15 to 44 years, and 18.4 abortions per 100 pregnancies ending in abortion or live birth. That is a fuckload of abortions. I don't care how pro-choice you are. There is no fucking way that there needs to be that many. There's no way. There is no way that almost 900,000 people don't have a choice. There's no other choice but to kill that baby. There's no fucking way. There is no way. And
well, especially in modernity. I mean, there are so many options, and most of it. It's so hard to just throw blanket statements on these things because every situation is different. But for the most part, there's another way.
That's why there's different options.
And there's more today than ever.
And I wouldn't go as far as, we talk like Steven Crowder of like women need to be more responsible, right? I'm talking a blanket statement of personal responsibility, not just
people.
women. Everyone.
Yep.
Everyone needs to be more responsible. Everyone needs to take responsibility for their actions and for what could happen from them. People are like, oh, people shouldn't be able to fuck. I know. I don't think if you're 15 you should fuck. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't. You call me whatever you want. I don't think it's a good idea.
No.
It's because you don't have the ability to conceptualize the consequences for your decision, right? You don't have the ability. Women do need to be more responsible. 100%. I'm not disqualifying them from that statement. I just don't mean only women, because
it does take two to tango.
There are men like Steven Crowder who would put it solely on the woman, and I don't think that's right, because again, that's a 2-person situation.
Yeah.
If you, as the man in that situation, have ceded that right, then of course it's completely on women. It is then up to her to make that choice, and I'm not going to speak for her because there's situations and circumstances or whatever that go into that, But outside of that, there are two people in this situation that need to have a role in this. Learn about other forms of contraception, not just abortion. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Because there's so many now.
100%.
Now, mind you, there's also,
and that's the responsibility factor of you even just using contraception.
Yes.
And not just.
Not just like the pill,
But that is the level of personal responsibility of using contraception. It's not as fun. It's not no shit. I get it. We're all 3 men in this room, right? We all get it. No one wants to use condoms. No one likes it. It's not as fun. We all get it.
It's a deal, man.
You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things.
Yeah. And I believe that is part of the problem when it comes to lack of responsibility in sexual activity, is that there is such a primal biological pleasure that is taken from it. And I mean, just as as well as anybody else, when people get horny, they get fucking stupid.
Yeah.
You know, that's just a thing about it. I mean, there's that old saying, you know, you're thinking with your little head instead of your big head.
Right.
It's like that.
But that shit's real.
That shit is real, man. And people make really stupid decisions when they're in the heat of the moment like that. It's like, oh, fuck, I can't get the goddamn peg. Fuck it. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
And that's no excuse for not dealing with the consequences after that, you know, or trying to take a cop out for it. And again, that's not to apply to any and all situations, but it is certainly happening where people are making bad decisions and then they're caught in a circumstance in which they might end up going to get an abortion at that point because they dropped the ball when it comes to their level of personal responsibility. They fucked up.
Right.
And part of me has sympathy, but a part of me says, I don't care. You know, the consequences are real, whether it doesn't matter how it happened. The consequences for it are real. I mean, it's a totally different conversation when you're talking about like rape and shit.
Right.
I think it's a totally different thing because these are not two willing parties.
So this is a good example, I think, right? Jordan, we just talked to Jake and Morgan about this like 2 weekends ago, whenever we were at their house. Like Jordan's line that she dropped in conversation was like 12 weeks. Jordan's had 2 babies, right? She's been a woman her entire life. She's had plenty of periods. She's had all these things, right? She also has had extremely irregular periods her entire life, so she understands the non-irregularity.
Yeah.
Like she understands the whole entire deal, right? She was on birth control for a long time and like didn't have periods to help deal with some medical issues and stuff. So she understands the swath of variances that there can be in periods, right? Because that's a big argument of like, oh, some people don't know and they're irregular and they go X amount of time without one and they blah, blah, blah.
Certain medications handle things different.
Jordan's line there is, which I think, I'm not saying this should be the law, but I think it feeds or lends well to both personal responsibility and also personal choice. 12 weeks is 3 months. That's a long time. That's 3 periods for you to miss. That's 3 cycles for you to miss. That's a long time for you to notice that something is different, right? That's also soon enough that you can argue, I'm not going to say it's correct or not, but you can argue about whether or not it's a baby, right? It's like 6 weeks and stuff. Like there's all kinds of stuff. You'll be like, that's too early. You never know. You whatever. But even then, right, the personal responsibility there for women is not only in the initial stage of ensuring contraception and stuff like that, but even past that point of paying enough attention to what's going on in your life to notice, I've missed 3 periods now. Something is going on in my life. I should maybe check whether or not I'm pregnant and not just like, oh, I'm stressed out. Fucking shit is weird, you know? Maybe do something. Maybe figure something out because something is going on, you know? So
yeah, at that point, I mean, you might have some kind of medical condition that you would want to get looked at or something.
Exactly. It's not just that you're pregnant, but that's a good place to start. Buy a fucking cheap ass test, take a piss on it.
Word.
Figure it out, you know?
Figure it
out. Yeah. Yeah. It's
and it's tough because you can't say that without sounding like a misogynist asshole telling
you don't know.
women what to do.
You
know?
don't have lived experience. We'll get into that more later. We'll get into lived experience more later, everybody.
Yeah. It's so complicated because it is such an individual decision, I think. I agree at 12 weeks, you definitely know.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's kind of what I've heard anyways.
Yeah.
And I cannot get over the fact that when it comes to the entire abortion debate, like, I don't understand, like, a lot of these, I don't want to say a lot of, you know, pro-choice, and actually, I have a hard time calling them pro-choicers now, because there are now essentially 3 or 4 camps in this thing. There's pro-abortion, there's pro-choice, and we'll just say pro-life at that point.
They're not even good labels anymore.
No.
And that's why I've said, like, quote-unquote pro-life is because that's not even, like, a good, you know, we fit into pro-life technically, but we're also, like, but I also wouldn't tell you that you can't take Plan B, you know? But that's what, if you type in pro-life, that's what you're going to get. You know, if you Google pro-life, they're going to they don't think, no abortion, no contraception at all. And that's not, like, I don't, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
I'm so
I lost
sorry.
it.
No. There's 3 or 4 different camps, like you were saying.
Yes.
There's
like in the pro-abortion camp, right? It's hard to participate in that, especially as a man, because for one, you're not welcome, and I think it's a massive disservice because if they're looking at somebody to, I mean, at some point you got to bring the man's decision into this too, because it took him to make a little baby at that point.
It definitely
and
took him.
And there is a finger to point, and there's somebody to blame that nobody's doing, and I don't understand that. Because you could take that whole side of even like a pro-choice argument and just make it solely about the male's responsibility in it, and you could point the finger at them because that's, I mean, let's just face it, most of the time I feel like it's probably relatively safe to say that men in general are going to be helping to initiate a sexual activity. Yes. Because that's kind of genetically encoded in us.
Even if they just agree.
Yeah, you know? And I don't understand.
Even if all it is consent.
Yes. Yes. Here's the document. Please fill it out. And let's fuck. But I don't understand why they don't point the finger at men and say, you know, this is your fucking fault. You guys, you know, there needs to be a renewed conversation about men's sexual responsibility in their part of contraception. Because legitimately, it's the easiest and the cheapest to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that doesn't factor into things.
Certainly the least biological effects, like taking birth control pills and stuff, it really fuck with your hormones. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
You know, it can be a helpful tool, but it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Objectively speaking, it's not good for you.
And we know more today about the negative effects than that than ever before.
But there's also, like, people... Jordan Dixon, fucking Larry's wife, right, is on zero contraception at all. But they don't have any children. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's very into, and Jordan has talked to her more about it than I have, because Jordan, especially now, she doesn't want to take birth control pills again. And and I'm not going to get snipped at fucking 27 because you've got me fucked up. There are a lot of people that I know that are very young that, like, had 2 kids and then they get snipped at like 30. You got me fucked up. Not only because I'm only 30 years old, but there's a question of testosterone levels and stuff like that. And that's
could always throw a condom on,
bro.
That's an aside. Don't get
snipped. But there's also there are ways outside of even just traditional contraception that you can not get pregnant.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not necessarily as reliable. But if you again are very responsible about what you're doing and make sure that you're on your shit. Biology is biology. You know, it only can happen at a certain point in time.
Yes.
So,
and that's actually something. I had a buddy of mine in the Coast Guard whose wife did that. They'd never been. I think she had some kind of really adverse reaction to
like
birth
cycling
controls
or some shit like that. You know?
And there's apps today you can get on your phone.
Yeah.
And so you get up every morning, you take your temperature with a very, very precise thermometer that gives you down to like the tenth and the hundredth of a degree and stuff like that, and you track the thing in this app, and it will show like your cycles, and it shows, okay, this is the be caution weeks, and this is the don't, unless you're trying to have a baby, you're ovulating right now, don't just use a lot of protection.
Right.
And then there's other days
don't
where it's safer, and I mean, it's going to happen. But I mean, and it's amazing because that kind of technology now it only exists because of how much of a better understanding we have of the biology of women's reproductive systems and things like that now. And it's a strikingly reliable way to get around the use of any kind of contraception. And these people, I mean, they went for years and years and years and years.
Yes. Just
doing this flow app, and there's cycles of moons and blah, blah, blah. And I can't pretend to understand it, but they never had a kid.
But it also takes... This is another responsibility factor of that takes being a healthy person. If you are consuming a lot of rhythm method, thank you very much. Yes.
Boom.
Thank you. So if you're consuming a lot of processed foods and a lot of outside hormones and a lot of things that are fucking with your biology, you're going to have a much harder time ensuring that your regularity of your cycle and using a rhythm method like that. You're going to have a way harder time. If you're living a healthier lifestyle, as fucking everybody should be, you're going to have an easier time in your general health, which would include your reproductive cycle.
Yes. It's a whole package deal.
The same thing with men. If you eat better, you have better sperm motility, your actual sperm count goes higher, all that type of shit. Your underwear style can change how much sperm you have.
Yeah.
Like those things are all real. That's all. People don't like it. You don't like to put it under the same umbrella, but that's all personal responsibility. That's being responsible for the decisions you make in your life.
Yeah.
You know,
like Zeke, I like that. Ironically, being pro-life would encourage men to be more responsible.
100%.
Sure would.
100%.
I mean, I hate to give the little Irish man some credit here, but Seamus on IRL all the time. He's a very devout Catholic, and he's a virgin until after he gets married at some point, and he preaches a lot about that. And I think it's, I wouldn't call him an incel, Although I think he has some really interesting tendencies. He's kind of a nerdy, geeky little dude.
But he's not unattractive. If he wanted to go to a bar, find a random woman to fuck, he could do it, no problem.
Yeah, which shows his level of personal responsibility, especially if you are a virgin. Those fucking hormones, bro, they're trying to get you to do it, man.
And I think him and I are like around the same age. If you're in your mid-20s, you know.
Oh, dude. I can't even imagine.
I'm married now, and still.
I know.
Yeah.
I was getting on a regular basis back then because of how young I was, but I was still married and all that stuff, so it wasn't an issue.
Right.
But I can't imagine trying to maintain virginity during that period. That's got to be intense.
No, and there's got to be, you know, no one here, obviously, but there's got to be Timcast sluts. You know that Seamus could just throw his fucking number into some Timcast chat room.
Oh, he definitely
and get
could.
some woman to show up at the Cast Castle to suck his dick in 5 minutes.
He could.
You know?
He definitely could.
So, and people don't
Get through
like...
security might be tough.
Like, I don't think that there's... Now we can just talk about societal things. I don't think there's anything wrong with choosing to be celibate, you know, choosing to be abstinent, right? And it shouldn't be made to be that there is something wrong with it.
Yeah.
And it's only now that I'm an adult and that I guess I was like 15 when I lost my virginity. At the time, I was like, yeah, I'm 15, you know, this is cool and this is whatever. And then I got to be married, and like I almost wish that I would have waited. And it's a personal thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just, it's not like a base physical level thing for me, you know? So after having those experiences, however many there were, I was like, this is like not as good as when I married. It's not the same thing, you know? And the trivialization of it to just a base physical thing. Seamus, yes, Ian, no. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Thank you, Deborah. God damn it, I'm glad you're here.
Oh, man.
So,
I love Ian so much.
but it's the entire perception of that, you know, especially with the introduction of incels. Message retracted. God damn it. That means it was good. That means it was really good.
Oh, man.
I love that. No. So, but I don't.
She's like, I don't want Seamus to see this shit. Give me ideas.
The social stigma of that pushes people away from the responsibility of that.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you more irresponsible about it. It makes you reckless about it.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it's a stretch to say that if society was generally more responsible, we'd be dealing with these problems at the same level we are. If we are a much more responsible society, I don't know if we'd have this conversation.
Yeah.
To be honest, because you would have a good understanding of the consequences because you were raised to believe that, to understand those consequences and to understand the battles and you know, internal conflict, hormonal conflict even, that you're going to have to battle to go through puberty and not make bad decisions like that. But that requires a massive social push. And I don't see that happening in our current world today, which is sad, but it is possible. It really is possible to have a society with that level of responsibility.
Yeah, I don't know how you put that cat back in the bag, you know?
I don't know if you can.
On a cultural level of like, and I'm not blaming anyone, you know, when you have fucking songs like WAP, you know, wet ass pussy shit like that,
Yeah.
like when that's a whole persona of female rap music. And again, I'm not denigrating. You're making money that way. You're making your basket. I don't, or you're making your bag. It's none of my business. You know, I'm not telling you that
You're making your bed, now lie in it?
no, you're securing your bag. Like they're making money. They're
word.
making their living that way.
I was like, I don't understand that one.
No, they're securing the bag. They're
makes
making their bag that way. So I'm not hating because they're making money. That's how you're making your living.
Yep.
But I don't necessarily think that that's a positive influence on society when we're talking about 862,000 abortions in a single fucking year in one country. You know, I don't think that's a positive influence on society when we need more personal responsibility and you're actively encouraging people, women and men alike, to be less responsible. I don't think that's a good thing. And
it's not to say that in a responsible society you can't have those cultural, items or something like that. You
I
can
don't think
still
it's
have
inherently
shit.
bad.
Yeah, because otherwise you end up kind of going down this road where you get like the moral society type of thing,
Right.
and then you get who was it that was it Tipper Gore that was kind of leading the charge for getting explicit lyrics, stamped on the CDs and shit back then. I mean, I would really, really not like to go down that road because I don't want the state to be involved at any level like that. I don't want any giant establishment kind of mechanism to be involved at that point. That's wrong.
That's how you get people banned from your country. You know.
Yeah.
Here's a really good example of this, right? Tyler, the Creator, one of my favorite rappers, he used to be in a group called Odd Future, right? And when he was in Odd Future, they were supposed to go to Australia for a tour. And in one of their songs, it doesn't matter, I'm going to say it on YouTube, one of Tyler's lyrics is...
Wait. Don't get us kicked off of YouTube now.
It's a song lyric. What am I going to say? It's a song lyric.
Okay.
And so his lyric in this, it's a song, it's made up, it's not real. So let me preface it with this, right? When they were in Odd Future, part of their whole deal was to make inflammatory music.
Okay.
Was to make music that made people upset. That said shit that was wild. It
Push
was,
the line.
Yes, that was the whole entire idea. And they said that throughout their time as Odd Future, and then again when they all became individual artists, they said, we did that so that we can make a name for ourselves and then make individual projects and make our own music the way that we wanted.
Get the attention.
This was all a vehicle for us to get to where a platform that we wanted for us to do what we wanted on our own, right? So in that pursuit, they said crazy things, crazy things. One of the things that Tyler said, rape a pregnant bitch, tell my friends I had a threesome.
Oh,
right?
Geez.
This lyric and several others is one of the things that got them banned from Australia. They could not go to Australia for a tour because their lyrics were so egregious. It's a song. It's a song, right?
Yep.
It's a song. He has since then done half of the music for the animated Grinch movie that came out 4 years ago.
Yep.
So what are we really talking about,
Yeah.
right? But that's how you get to that type of thing, is when you legislate morality, when you enshrine those things in law, and you give that type of power to your controlling government.
Yeah.
That you get in that position where people can't even come here to perform because they say things that it's just too much. You know,
Yeah.
That's how you get
infamy.
Alex Jones fucking banned off of YouTube for shit. I'm not defending Alex Jones. You know, that's how that shit happens.
Oh yeah. You say wild sensational shit, sensational shit like that, and yeah, you kind of you get infamous, you know, and it's dangerous, and people are interested in that, and it's controversial. So then you get free press, and you know, people that listen to music, generally speaking, I mean, depending on what genre you're in, like, it's not so much about the words that are said or I mean, it's a whole conceptual idea. A song is a whole entity. You can't take a line out of one line from a song and be like, okay, this song's bad, this creator's bad, the whole 9 yards. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
But when you spend part of your career just doing nothing but controversial shit, you know you're gonna get notoriety for that, and then that gives you the freedom to then do your more creative project, to do what it was that you wanted.
Exactly.
And some people, like Alex Jones, is a really interesting case because he's infamous for just saying crazy shit all the time, because he always just says crazy shit. He's got a lot of stuff going on.
Milo Yiannopoulos is a great example. His whole deal was to be a troll, to say shit that made you upset. The first time, I fucking vividly remember, the first time that I heard of Milo Yiannopoulos was on Joe Rogan.
Okay.
And it was before you and I worked together, but like way before the podcast.
Yeah.
Because we still work together, so way before the podcast. And so you can imagine my mindset at the time, right, of where I was politically and everything, even not being politically active. The first time I heard Milo Yiannopoulos, I was disgusted. I turned off the episode because I couldn't believe that somebody would say things like that. And the example that I came home to Jordan with was, he was talking about fat people in the gym, and fat people shouldn't be in the gym because they're just disgusting and nobody wants to look at them, and you know, why in the fuck would they even be there? If they're going to not make themselves respectable, they should put themselves into a respectable form and then go to the gym. You need to get in shape at home and then go to the gym to refine your form, right? And that was like one of the series of things that at the time I was like, this is just so fucking gross. I can't believe anyone would say any things like this, partially because I didn't know who he was. So I didn't understand the persona that he had created for himself, and Joe knew who he was, so he's only lightly pushing back, and I'm like, why is this happening? Why is the interaction going like this? And so he said a series of those type of things until he's banned from everything, you know. Leslie Jones, that's the woman's name. Leslie Jones. Now, because he had supposedly had an account, you know, that like was making fun of her and all kinds of stuff. So it's
still the best.
That's how people like that get banned from public discourse is because we can't allow them to say things that we find inflammatory, that make us uncomfortable, that someone finds triggering. We can't allow them to say something like this. That's the whole book that I read last month for the book club was The Coddling of the American Mind, right? A huge portion of it is just about safetyism. The way that we are, big, a line used many times is we are preparing we should be preparing our children for the road and not the road for the children, but we're doing the exact opposite. We are trying to pad the road so that the children can be more comfortable instead of preparing them for the rough road that is ahead.
Yeah.
And
you don't need to be putting the bumpers up on the bowling lane. You need to be taking them down.
Right.
And then guiding them through that.
And so the whole book obviously is about from the way that we are raising our children to the way that they interact in universities and things like that. And it all about safetyism. That's the worst possible way that we could be approaching anything, particularly now, is just trying to change the world to make it softer and softer and softer for people to deal with.
Yeah.
That's how you get away from personal responsibility. When the world is meant to cater to you, you don't need to be responsible because someone else is going to clean up the mess. Somebody else is responsible for that because I didn't do it. I am who I am, and I need to be free to be myself, and I need to be free to come in whoever I want and not be affiliated with anything afterwards and say that it's none of my business and, well, society should be taking care of all these children who need to be taken care of and the mothers who can't take care of their children. That's how you get in this position. That's exactly how you get there.
800,000+. That's
almost
terrifying.
900,000 abortions.
And you can understand with the numbers like that why, like the more devout people call it a genocide. They call it a genocide on unborn children because those numbers are insane, man. And I'm not going to pretend to pass judgment on any individual case, obviously, but those numbers are insane. You cannot deny that. It's massive. Well, I do want to say this, though, because we did kind of get a little far afield, particularly as to the Roe v. Wade thing. Let's just say tomorrow.
Discussion was going to be about, I think.
But I think whenever the final decision does come down, it is important to remember that this does not immediately make abortion illegal throughout the country.
No.
And there are going to be many states where it does become illegal. There's going to be a lot of states where it becomes illegal at certain time periods. And then there's going to be states that are going to go whole hog and go the complete opposite direction.
There are already states that do that, right? Alaska, Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, third trimester, sorry, in Virginia. New Jersey has no limit, Vermont no limit, and New Hampshire. All of those states, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states with no limit on abortion at all. That already happens even with Roe. So that number will definitely grow because Virginia is third trimester, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Nevada, and Florida are all 24 weeks. And then you have a bunch that are 22 to 24. Michigan, Illinois, Missouri, Minnesota, Montana, Washington is 22 to 24. Idaho, Wyoming, California, Utah, Arizona, Tennessee, North Carolina, Maryland, Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Maine, Hawaii. Those are all 22 to 24.
That's a long time.
And that's viability currently, medical viability. That's like what their limit is set at, which is what Roe obviously is what is set at. So Casey, actually, I believe Casey is viability.
Yeah, Casey said, I think Roe said it as a, they made it a, what is that? The health.
You couldn't do it, and you couldn't do it before the first trimester, I think, is what that set it to. And then Casey pushed it out to viability.
Something like that, yeah. We're not going to try to break down Roe v. Wade.
No.
If you want
I thought about it, and it's not.
You go to Ben Shapiro for that shit.
Yeah, that's not
all I'm
for
saying.
Us. Like I said, all we could do is just postulate on whether or not we think that it's decided correctly. Yeah. I think this is worth watching because, and I will say this right before we end this segment, I will say this, that this is worth paying attention to because the one real concern I have with this is what the implications could be of removing these laid out with the privacy statutes, right? Removing these from people. I don't know exactly what the overreaching circumstances of that could be because as we know, some people might know Roe was decided off of what the fuck did I just say? Privacy between you and your doctor, right?
Yeah.
It's ruled on a privacy basis. And so if we're removing that privacy doesn't exist there, I don't know how far that goes. And with the two today and other cases that we've talked about of growing power of the state and of the executive branch in particular, I don't know how I feel about removing privacy protections that we have in place. Even if it's just this medical thing, if we're talking about even just living in a post-COVID world, I don't know how I feel about removing the privacy protections that exist now, because we already have such limited privacy from the state, from the executive, with the Patriot Act, with all this other bullshit, COINTELPRO, all the things that we know already exists. The level of privacy that we have is so low already. I don't know how I feel about lessening that even more.
That is an argument I have not heard pontificated before. That's something to think about. I like that.
And that's my real concern. You know, abortion is kind of neither here nor there. For me, it's not, enumerative rights and all this type of stuff. I don't know. People were getting abortions in 1776. That was happening. It wasn't happening the same way that it was now, but people were getting abortions at that time.
In some form.
It was happening, right? People were having abortions. I can say that. I don't know to the extent. I know, certainly based off that book, the Daniel James Brown book that I read, people were getting abortions at that time. That shit was happening. Even if you're just throwing yourself down the stairs because you knew you're pregnant, you're getting an abortion somehow, right?
I mean, they had dental services, but it was just somebody with a pair of pliers.
That's what I'm saying. So it was happening, right? I don't know about a whole federal thing about it not. This is a really good example, right? We are okay as a society with states regulating firearms state by state, even though that is explicitly mentioned in the Bill of Rights as the base, the first 10 amendments that we have, the first 10 rights that the government definitely can't infringe upon. We allow that to go state by state, but for some reason to the left, it's completely unacceptable for abortion to be done state by state, which is not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution. Yeah. It's assumed in the enumerative rights that are laid out in the 9th Amendment of the Constitution, which fuck me if that doesn't include my right to own a machine gun, you know? So I don't necessarily buy that argument of it's laid out in or assumed in the enumerative rights that are in the 9th Amendment of the Constitution. I don't necessarily buy that. Again, I can't say whether or not it's correctly decided, but I don't necessarily buy that on my end.
Any argument I've ever heard presented to me from like a decent legal mind, from a legal standpoint, I always walk away thinking that, for one reason or another, it was not a good decision at the time, and for multiple reasons. I've heard different arguments for it, but nobody ever talks about that aspect of the privacy, because it's like women's health care is a privacy right, essentially. I think that's kind of what it boils down to. Yeah. And I don't know how comfortable I am. I mean, I would still hope that because it's, a medical situation, that it's covered under at least HIPAA, where, the medical establishment can't blow you up for something like that.
Right.
But, and at the end of the day, nobody's going to stop somebody from standing outside an abortion clinic trying to figure out who you are and trying to dox you and saying that you went in and had an abortion, or vice versa. So but from a federal standpoint, it would be something to think about and to watch and maybe ask some people about that have legal minds. I'd be really interesting. Talk to Ricada Law.
In a world where, the corporate media is telling us that we can't trust the Supreme Court, the left is telling us we can't trust the Supreme Court, why would I not assume that they would take this precedent of removal of privacy rights in a medical state, however you want to state that, and I'm not trying to misconstrue it, right? I'm just trying to encompass it as easy as I can. Why wouldn't I believe that they're going to take that precedent and use it on something else?
Yeah.
If I already can't trust them, if that's what I'm supposed to believe, why wouldn't I believe that they're going to immediately try and use that to infringe on the rest of my privacy rights?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about abortion. I don't care about that. Really, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit about that. But if you're going to use this, if the long-term intent is to use this to infringe further on my rights to privacy, fuck you.
Yeah.
Leave it then. If that's what it comes down to, then fucking leave it.
I'd rather have the privacy than more open access or less access to abortion, I guess.
Patriot Act. And that's what I'm saying. I brought up the Patriot Act 100%. I absolutely address that. Is that in the world with the Patriot Act, with COINTELPRO, with all of that stuff, that's why I wouldn't want to do anything else to further. I don't want to say I don't want to, because I started this. Bilbo Swaggin, 117, he's new, so I didn't see you before if you're here, but I started this line by saying my concern would be, I don't know how it would how that could be used in the future.
Yeah.
And so my only concern would be the way that it would be continuing to strip away our rights to privacy in a world where they are already so slim.
Yeah.
That's the concern.
That's true.
So no, 100% Bill By. I absolutely. The Patriot Act, COINTELPRO, everything. So
Yep. And also, I will say, what's the worst time? We'll talk about this, I think. We'll go deeper into it, I think, in the next segment. But
nope, absolutely, Bill.
emotional decisions, emotional times,
Yes.
when people feel very emotional about things, that is the very, very, very last time where you should be trying to pass some form of legislation, because that's how you get shit like the fucking Patriot Act.
That's a great point.
And it's every time. And we're going to talk about that, I think, more in part 3.
Definitely, yeah, but it's a great, and we can end on this because that's a great point for this too, especially after the leaked opinion. People are, as inflamed about Roe as probably since it was decided.
Yeah.
Probably since Casey, about inflamed about abortion as it was decided. So fears these way, and if you're telling people, if you're Lori Lightfoot and you're telling people, not only is this a call against your abortion rights, if you're LGBT, they're coming for you next. This is a call to arms because they're using this as a door to come for you as a community.
Which is fucking insane.
Also, we're going to take your guns.
Yeah.
But they're coming for them, but they wouldn't do that. The Democrats would never do that. But
also, they are.
No, it's not good. So, absolutely. I want to thank everyone again for being here. We're going to take just a 3-minute break, right? This works. This is part 2. We're talking about the leaked Roe draft opinion, everything like that. In part 3, we're going to be discussing the shooting in Uvalde. We're going to go over the things that we know so far. As everyone knows, and anyone here who is here from 10Cast or anybody who was watching the show before knows, there's an awful lot of suspicious things that happened around Uvalde, so all we can discuss is what we know and the lies that have happened there. We're going to give a brief synopsis of it. There are other places you can go to get a full breakdown of it. We are then going to talk about some of the calls for gun control, the ways that those could affect us, and
the new House bill that just
that
passed.
we've already seen. We're going to talk about some stuff that came out of New York.
Yep.
We're going to talk about exactly what you can do to be qualified to wear body armor. Hint. It's very, very easy.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying that we're going to do the entire segment in body armor, but we might be.
We might. So with that, we will be back in 3 minutes, everybody, for part 3. Thank you very much. Salt of the Streets.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready.